All right, welcome everyone.
Hello.
I'm going to call the meeting of the Monroe County Council to order for Tuesday, March 28th. And I would like to note for the record that we are all here present in the room. So that said, let's move to the adoption of the agenda. Does anyone wish to add or remove an item from tonight's agenda? All right. In that case, then we go to item number 3, which is public comment for items not on the agenda. Is there anyone here or online who would like to make comment? I'm not logged in, so if there's someone online, I'll need to be. Thanks, okay. Then, moving right along, we have department updates. Do we have any departments that would like to make an update?
Yes, you do.
Welcome, Mr. Cockrell.
Good evening. I'm here to kind of give you an update on, I guess last Wednesday we had our redevelopment commission meeting where we got the annual reports and they reviewed that at the meeting. It's very educational. I would tell you if you have any questions, we will file a copy of all those reports with you. I think you've already gotten them by email because you're on the redevelopment commission. So we're going to file those with you, and those need to be put into Gateway. I thought I'd take this opportunity to kind of go through real quickly the 4 TIF districts, and then also give you a couple of things that came up at that meeting that will probably you'll be seeing fairly soon. The first one is the State Road 46 corridor. This TIF district is one where we're currently working on a Curry Pike's extension to Arlington Drive. That is done through a developer's bond, and for you guys, the important thing to know about that is that if the revenues from that TIF district do not equate to paying off that bond in full, that risk is all on the developer. So there would be no discussion of coming back to the county for additional funding. That is also the area where the Redevelopment Commission has been looking at a residential TIF for housing in that area. I think in not April, but May, there's a plan to have a meeting at the Ellettsville Fire Station to invite the neighbors and the neighborhoods in that area to kind of come in and talk about what that means and what the plans are, at least right now for that. So that's the State Road 46 corridor. Curry Profile is, if you recall, the GE plant used to be part of the West Side TIF district. Those 2 parcels where that was held were pulled out into a Curry Profile, and a developer bond was issued for helping to revamp that historically high employment site in the county. Honestly, with COVID hitting, not a whole lot has gone on with that. We're going to ask representatives from Cook to come in and give the Redevelopment Commission an update at a future meeting. The next one I'll go with is the West Side TIF District. As you guys may be aware, there's a fairly large federal backing to a fairly large bridge project, namely connecting Vernal Pike to Gates Drive. And so that had gone to letting earlier this year, but the bids were such that the NDOT determined them to be unawardable. So we're still going through that process of trying to figure out, and we're going to go through a reletting process probably this fall to kind of continue with that, along with a trail project in that area as well. Their Redevelopment Commission is really looking at the cash flow in that area to determine what happens if the bids come in high, what is the future if the bids come in as estimated, and what happens with that. So if you watch the future Redevelopment Commission meetings, we'll have some information on that as we move forward. The fourth is the Fullerton Pike TIF, and this is kind of the one that I think is going to have a potential, hopefully we'll have an action item for you in the near future. As you know, we are getting ready to do Fullerton Pike Phase 3, which would involve a bridge over 200 feet, which is allowable use of the major bridge fund. That bridge project is going to be awfully expensive, and it's got about 4 million, or no, 2.7 million in MPO money associated with it. So when that goes to letting, we need to be able to cover the rest of, I think and Lisa's here, and she can correct me if I'm wrong with any of these numbers, about $14 million bridge project. We discussed, at least with the redevelopment commission, probably a year and a half, 2 years ago, and I think we let the council know that we would probably need to do a bond out of the major bridge fund and also include the Fulton Pike TIF fund as well in the repayment of that bond to make that project cash flow appropriately. So that bridge letting is going to be either in summer or early fall. So we really need to get a move on getting a bond ready to be issued for that project. I know Mr. Garataz is coming to this work session in April. He'll probably have more information. Well, he will have more information on this with the anticipation. We're going to work with bond counsel and try to get something in front of you for your May regular session meeting to kick off that kind of bond project. So stay tuned on that. We're working on that, but that is kind of something that you guys should have in your vision of the future. And if you have any questions, feel free to ask them now or give me a call whenever you want to.
Yes, I'd like to see that all in writing, please. That's a lot of information to be sharing with us, for us to share with the public. And I don't want to try to memorize what you said. So do you have that in writing or just up in your head?
Well, I have it up in my head, which means I can put it in writing and I can get it out to you guys.
Right.
The annual reports will be filed with you and then also put on the county website under the redevelopment commission page. So a lot of that will be there. But yes, I can get a memo to you guys.
Plus,
Right.
there's a nice Zoom transcription as well.
Right, I know, but I'd just like to see it in hard copy. So if you had it ready, I was going to ask you to deliver us a copy of it.
I can certainly
Okay,
get you a copy, or not a copy, but I can put down these thoughts in writing and get it sent out to you guys tomorrow.
thank
All
you.
right.
Well, I had to have one more question. Okay, because this is to be paid back, what's the parameters? Because if we have a huge project, if it's paid back with property tax, then there's a cap or it goes to a referendum. Is that still the case? And why is this different?
Well, I believe this, and again, this is all subject to bond counsel. We're started those talks, but this would be a revenue bond associated with revenues from the Major Bridge Fund and the Fulton Pike TIF Fund. So it isn't a general obligation bond, which is what we usually typically look at that, because that is an increase based upon the lending of the tax rate. So this wouldn't affect any underlying tax rates because the Major Bridge Fund and the Fulton Pike TIF Fund are already created and collecting revenue.
But do we believe it would be backed up with the full faith of county government dollars?
We're not that far along yet. I think we would get a much better rate if that were the
If we
case.
get to that point, then does it take a referendum or no?
I do not believe so, but I am not the bond expert.
Okay, well, thank you.
Okay.
Are there any other questions? Yeah.
Just to back up just a little bit, you had mentioned that Cook will give a review. Do you know when?
I have not talked to anybody from Cook, but that was the request of the redevelopment commission to talk to them, to have them come in and kind of give an update on their project. I would hope to be able, maybe April
Okay,
would be my goal. If not April, then probably May or June.
okay, thank you.
So would you expect that to be a written update or a presentation to commissioners, council,
It
redevelopment
would be
commissioners?
to the redevelopment commission.
Got
I would expect them to have someone at the meeting to kind of go
Okay.
through it. And if they had written materials, that would be great as well.
Okay. Terrific. Any other questions? Just thank you for laying everything out so clearly. I really appreciate it because we did get that info and I was like, well, please come and tell us all about it.
Not a problem. And again, I've given a brief overview. If you really want an in-depth review, you know, it's on CATS, the last redevelopment commission meeting.
Right.
Greg Garataz does a great job of explaining what's going on. So I would highly recommend that you all watch that meeting.
Okay. Thanks. Are there any other departments who would like to provide an update? Hello.
Hi. Just a quick update. Just wanted to inform you that my department is currently working on reviewing stagnant funds. So these are funds that just have, you know, a cash balance that we haven't used or haven't touched for sometimes like many years. So starting with the grant funds, just kind of going through those, we're working with the departments, you know, that these belong to, and granting agencies just to see what we can still do with the funds, if anything. So I will keep you updated as we move forward.
Very interesting. Cool. Maybe you'll find something
Yes.
buried somewhere. No. Thanks. Any other updates? Yes.
Do you want to use this time for council liaison updates as well, or would you just rather have that as council comment at the end?
I was thinking council comment at the end, but I am never one to stand on ceremony.
Usually we have a council liaison item on the agenda.
We need to make that happen on all of them.
I was gonna say,
Usually at a regular
we've only
meeting.
done council liaison on regular session,
okay.
but we can add that moving forward. so.
Okay, I'll wait for a council comment.
Okay, I would like that if we could make a note to
Okay,
do that.
I can do
Let's just
that.
get them on everything, and if nobody has anything, that's fine. Okay, thanks. So if there aren't any department updates, then we will move to item number 5 from our health department.
Council, I move to approve the Health Department's request in Fund 8126-9623 Futures Clinic Grant to deappropriate $58,000 in the personnel category and $66,330 in the supplies category for a total deappropriation of $64,330.
Second.
We have Ms. Kelly on Zoom with us. Welcome.
Thank you.
I think my microphone is not live.
So this is just a housekeeping item. We are basically just submitting this to clean up our lines from adjustments that need to be made from the final award letter that we received.
Does anyone have any questions on this item? Okay. So, seeing none, we'll do a, is there any public comment? No public comment, so we'll do a roll call vote.
Counselor Hawk,
Yes.
Counselor Iverson,
Yes.
Counselor McKim,
Yes.
Counselor Munson,
Yes.
Counselor Wiltz,
Yes.
Counselor Crossley,
Yes.
Counselor Deckard.
Yes.
Motion passed unanimous.
Do we have item B, please?
Council, I move to approve the Health Department's request in Fund 81809623 Disease Intervention STD Grant to deappropriate $926 in the services category.
Second.
Great.
So again, this is just another housekeeping item. When we receive the final award letter, we just need to adjust this amount. This funds our disease interventional specialist, and that's really about it.
Great. So are there any questions from council? Counselor Iverson?
Yes, Ms. Kelly, thank you for joining us this evening. This is the second grant on our agenda this evening that came in lower than what we anticipated. Will that impact service provision at all?
Well, I think that is still to be seen at this point. With our Futures Title X grant, we are going to keep operating off of those Title X funds, ideally until those run out, and then we should switch over to TANF funding. We have not received an award letter for TANF funding at this time. We hope to receive that sometime in early April, but from my understanding, generally, the grant agency asks for us to run through all of our Title X before we would receive any TANF funding to extend the grant cycle.
That makes sense. Thank you. I just want to make sure that the good work that you and your folks are doing is not going to be impacted by lower grant totals.
Not that we know of at this time.
It's good to hear.
All right, any other questions from council? Any public comment? Thank you. So could I please have a roll call vote?
Counselor Iverson?
Yes.
Counselor McKim?
Yes.
Counselor Munson?
Yes.
Counselor Wiltz?
Yes.
Counselor Crossley?
Yes?
Counselor Deckard? Counselor Hawk?
Yes.
Motion passed unanimous.
And we have item C.
Council, I move to approve the Health Department's request a category transfer in Fund 8130-0000 Nacho Grant in the amount of $2,500 from the supplies category to the services category.
Second.
And it looks like we're just spending down the rest of this, is that right?
That is correct. So we're just transferring over to be able to pay our quarterly fees, and we are continuing to explore other tobacco cessation options for long-term usage of this program. But that is essentially what we are doing with this additional or remaining funding through the end of the year.
Great. Are there any questions from council on this one? Any public comment? Could I have a roll call vote, please?
You can do a voice vote.
Oh, we will do a voice vote. All in favor of supporting the motion to move money from one category to the other as described, please say aye. Aye. All opposed, say nay. Motion passes unanimous. And looks like that's everything. Thank you, Ms. Kelly.
Yeah.
Now we move to item 6.
Council, I move to approve the Emergency Management Department's request for an additional appropriation in Fund 1152-0000 Emergency Planning Right to Know in the amount of $10,000 in the capital category.
Second.
Great, thank you. And do we have anyone from Emergency Management with us today? I am logged on now. I guess I could see if somebody's there. Sorry. Nope.
I don't see anybody.
Okay, so this is a very straightforward situation. So I mean, I feel comfortable just going with the description.
I was gonna,
This is grant fund.
Yeah.
I was gonna say, as liaison, I have talked with emergency management about this, and I do think it's pretty straightforward.
Great, okay. So is there any public comment on this item?
Maybe just read the description into the record, just so we can get some idea of the, okay, sorry. The Local Emergency Planning Committee approved the use of right-to-know funds acquired from the state SARA 2 reporting program and earmarked for spending by the Local Emergency Planning Committee to purchase 8 hazardous material chemical suits, 8 hazardous materials chemical boots, and a detection instrument for the sensing of chlorine and ammonia. The suits and boots must be replaced periodically due to the breakdown of materials. The detection instrument is a new addition to the hazardous material toolbox. All items will enhance the safety of our first responders and citizens during hazardous materials incidents. This is in addition to the funds requested in December of 2022. Boots and suits.
Boots and suits. Thank you. Now, is there, oh, yes.
I was going to make an additional comment related to emergency management, if I could, just for a moment.
Absolutely.
Both Councilor Munson and I have been able to serve as liaison in the last couple years with emergency management, and this is such a huge office for the county. Anytime something is either going wrong or thought about going wrong, emergency management is thinking about that, and we have had a pretty good distinctive record of strong directors, strong leadership, and I spent some time out there in the last week. One of the things that, for instance, for the folks watching from home, if you think about the rain that we got in the last week time period, emergency management is not only tracking that, but keeping in touch with the state, keeping in touch with meteorological, I'm not saying that right, I'm sure, predictions on what that would look like. And throughout that period, emailing the Emergency Management Council, which I'm pleased to be on as by virtue of this council, on updates to all that. I get those periodic updates so that we know what's happening and people in the county can respond accordingly. And so this is just one cog in the what do we do when fill in the blank happens, God forbid it ever happens, that we have it. So I'm always glad to see this on our agenda and the good things that they're doing out there near the airport. Thank you.
Thanks, Councilor Deckard. Are there any other comments from council? Any public comment on this item? In that case, could we have a roll call vote, please?
Counselor Munson,
Yes.
Counselor Wiltz,
Yes.
Counselor Crossley,
Yes.
Counselor Deckard,
Yes.
Counselor Hawk,
Yes.
Counselor Iverson,
Yes.
Counselor McKim.
Yes.
Motion passed unanimous.
Thank you. And now we have item number 7 with the auditor.
Council, I move to approve the commissioner's request to create new account lines and simultaneously approve additional appropriations in Fund 89500000 American Rescue Plan Act ARPA Fund in the amount of $2,625,000 in the services category and $2,070,571 in the capital category for a total of $4,695,571.
Second.
I'd like to separate the question, please.
Okay.
Taking off the, I'd like to vote separately on the new account lines that we didn't have before because I did not support those the last vote.
I didn't quite hear what she said.
I beg your pardon?
I didn't quite hear sorry, I didn't quite hear what you said.
Oh, I'll be happy to say that louder.
Okay.
I would like to separate the question, please, removing, voting separately on new account lines 36712 and 36713, as well as the additional appropriations for those lines.
Thank you.
Okay. Ms. Gregory, would you like to give us
If I
some
don't get a
information?
second, I can just go
Oh,
again.
I'm sorry.
Okay.
In my head, we just went ahead and did it.
We'll just grant that for this sort of without a vote.
Okay. Is it okay to just do that then? Yeah, okay. So we'll separate out, but I would like to hear from Ms. Gregory now, if that's okay.
Sure. Okay. Thank you.
And then you might even want to read off, instead of separating the way the motion went, read off what each of those numbers are. You know, because the motion went just like so much for services and whatever.
Yeah.
And
okay.
that's really we need to let the
We could
public
just
know.
vote on each one separately.
Yeah. Now it's your turn.
Okay, all right. Well, this really is much of a housekeeping item as well. These are all, I believe, projects you have reviewed and discussed with the commissioners previously and are pretty familiar with each one. I know the commissioners and administrators are right here to answer questions as well. Please let us know if there's anything we can do.
Thank you.
Sure.
Councilor McKim?
Thanks. Yes, I just want to confirm. I believe I already heard the answer before the meeting, but I just want to confirm all of these we have actually already voted on an appropriation for. But those appropriations lapsed at the end of the year, and because we didn't have an MOU, we could not encumber. But these are not. This is no new money being appropriated that we haven't already.
Right. There are, I believe, 2 that were not previously appropriated. So, and those are the new account lines that we're adding here. So the community assistance and then the permanent supportive housing initiative for Beacon.
Which is the one she...
I believe they've all been discussed when as you discussed with the commissioners. However, I don't think they were appropriated previously.
I can maybe
can
give
look.
more information if you like.
Yes, please, because that's not the way I understood it.
Sure.
And
So the 2
would it be
items that,
maybe we should just table this to another meeting where we can have the folks involved here make a presentation.
yeah, I think I can help you to understand. So the 2 items that you have not appropriated previously, you have, however, approved. So the support for Beacon, that we have a letter that you that was signed by the Board of Commissioners and council. Not all council members were present for that signatory on that document. However, there was, and I know that Ms. Gregory has those names if necessary for you, but that had been approved, and that support is contingent upon them receiving particular grants and other kind of factors along the way. I've asked that we go ahead and put that into the ARPA fund so that we don't lose track of it. And then the second one is we have been working with the Community Foundation, who worked very hard during COVID, and they expended significant funds on helping our community with things directly related to COVID. And so the council and the commissioners had agreed on providing them with an endowment fund. We are unable to use ARPA funds for an endowment fund. So in conversation with the foundation, we can assist them with the expenses and costs that they incurred while working through the COVID pandemic. We can take that kind of debt from them, and so then they can put that money into an endowment. So it's kind of a roundabout way to get the endowment, but we're still using the ARPA dollars in the way that they're intended to be used. Does that make sense? Kate's looking at me like I'm speaking a foreign language.
So this is essentially what we had initially earmarked money for Heading Home.
Yes.
And that's already been paid out. Is that correct?
This was all part of it. So Heading Home had 2 parts. There was the 1.2 million that we went ahead and gave up straight up front.
Right, so that part is, that's what I'm trying to get at.
Yes,
It's
that's already
been paid out.
Yes, that's already been paid out. This is the second part, which was the endowment part.
Okay, that was
what I
not,
was
yes, that is what you
saying
said, and that was not
earlier.
what I had just been told. So, okay, that makes more sense. Thank you.
Because one of the things I had asked for to see what did the MOU look like because of what happened with Sojourn House, I just thought, well, maybe we should, because the MOU is in effect a contract, legal and binding, and so it would seem to me we might want to see what that said. But if you folks are fine without doing it, that's fine. I'm not going to vote in favor of it. I want to know what we're doing before we do it.
If I may, again, this was just so that you didn't lose track of that promise that was made regarding the 1.2. I don't think the commissioners have a, whether, if you guys don't want to appropriate it, that's entirely, up to you guys. We don't have an MOU at this point in time. We're not going to disperse any monies because there's so much more that needs to be done to ensure that we are using the funds in the correct manner. And that would all have to come to you guys for approval. In my mind, once we bring the, once those individual expenses are brought to us and determined to be an ARPA expense, that's going to have to come, in my mind, to this body to then approve those dispersals. Am I making any sense?
Well, you are making sense. I just hadn't realized that that's what you thought. So that's
Oh,
good to know.
Cool.
I was just going to add that there'll be like a thorough audit process to go through all these individual pieces and projects, and I can even do like a summary, with a little detail of each one, if we get to that point.
Okay. All right. Yes.
So on the community assistance for the Community Foundation, I mean, I certainly supported the concept of the endowment, and I understand this is kind of a backdoor way of getting there. I get that. Would there be is there any harm in us tabling that particular item until we get some more details on how the endowment is going to work and how?
Yeah, absolutely not. But it's not going to happen quickly. That's the only reason we thought about putting it on now is just to earmark that money. I have a concern that we are going to promise more money than what we'll end up with. That has been my only concern.
So in conversations that Councilor Munson and I had with the Community Foundation, I think our hope was that some of it used for childcare provision. And I certainly know that no one's at the point of saying, yes, this is what this is going to be used for right now. But the only reason I raise this is because the Lilly Foundation has just made available $50 million for early childhood education grants. And this would be a great way for us to leverage that towards making sure that we're taking care of kids. So I just wanted to mention the conversations that we've had with the Community Foundation and put a plug in for the kids.
Yeah, but that's not what this is for.
I know, and that's why I said,
I wanna make sure
the
we're
comment that my colleague just made was, that's not what this is for. And I wanted to reply that's why I said, no one at this point has any information about what this is going to be used for, but I wanted to very publicly state that conversations in the past have been around this area. So
And
it's not prescriptive. That's right. It could be.
I agree with you, is what I'm trying to say.
All right. That's
Yeah,
good.
and
Good,
so
good.
so are the commissioners. It could be. We want to hear from the foundation as to what projects and expenses that they have capital that we can use our ARPA funds for. That would free money up for them to use in an endowment.
And I guess this is just in response to Councilor Iverson's question. Again, would tabling it for a month to get more details imperil our ability to capture any of that the child care money?
I have no idea.
Is that a Brianna question?
I mean, my opinion, I don't think tabling it for a month is going to affect overall. The process is not going very quickly, so we're going to follow up as well.
Go ahead.
Well, I just want to follow up on that point. What's the advantage of tabling?
Get more information about what it is beyond just a line on a $1.2 million line on an agenda.
So were you talking about the 1.2 million, or were you talking about the child care line?
Those are separate.
Those are separate. The child care line 36708 on our agenda
That's what I thought.
is a separate line. Line number 36712 there have been conversations with the Community Foundation about childcare. And if I could just make a quick note about timing, the large grant that I just talked about from the Lilly Foundation, that is not due till June 15th at 5 p.m. Eastern Time. We've got time.
That's good.
Yeah.
I'd be happy to move forward with voting on the others that we already knew about and there's not been changes on. But, I mean, do as you please.
Is the child care line inclusive of what we've already spent under the child care category?
Yes, we've already expended some funds, I believe. I forgot that this was on the agenda and really wasn't planning on talking about it, but I think that the appropriation, Bree, do you know if we've expended, okay, thanks. Because there was two different childcare.
I believe that some of this was for a summer camp with the Boys and Girls Club.
That we have
Now,
dispersed.
that is not the definitive answer, and I say that only to aid Ms. Gregory's search.
And that is true, I do, and we have paid that out.
Yes, that happened last summer.
Yeah. Yes.
Oh, that's a great addition, yes.
The jump start. Why don't we vote on the others and table those two?
Okay. Go,
Wait, I'm sorry, what's the
Why
second
don't
one
we
that you want?
vote on the others and table these two that have to have something different? Or whatever.
Beacon, you guys, the council has on a majority approved that.
Yeah, I guess I'd be inclined just to, actually, I'm just gonna make the motion then. Council, I move we table just line 36712, Community Assistance Community Foundation, in the amount of $1.2 million to the April 25th, 2023 meeting.
Second.
Yeah, we've already talked about the Beacon. All the rest of them are, I think, we've already discussed. This is really the only new information.
I seconded. I'm a little soft-spoken tonight, so, sorry.
So the motion is just to table
Okay.
just that one.
Yes.
And, okay.
Okay.
When we vote on that.
any questions about tabling?
Vote no on the other one.
All right, then, can I do a voice vote? All in favor of tabling the community assistance line, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say nay. And motion passes unanimous.
And then I'd like for each of the other categories be read separately and voted on separately.
We will do that. Yep. I want to find out if there's any more discussion about any of the other items or questions about the other items before we vote. Wait, is there a problem?
No, my other question is just that which of these, if any, already do have an MOU with the commissioners, or are these all, the commissioners not done MOUs yet?
I thank you, sir. Okay. I can't answer that question. I know that we don't have an agreement yet on the solar projects because we're going to have to do an RFP on that.
I believe these weren't encumbered because there weren't yet MOUs in place by the end of the year, so.
That's exactly it. That's right. You had appropriated the money in 2022.
Yeah.
However, we didn't have contracts in place. That makes complete sense.
Yeah,
Thank you.
so this was kind of just like Angie mentioned earlier, the Commissioner's Administrator, just to earmark the funds that you've already approved. And that childcare appropriation, we had appropriated that originally, the childcare line, for $1.25 million. So this is separating out, I believe, two different projects. So appropriating $300,000, which we have a designated project for, and then the rest will be appropriated another time if you approve.
I do have a question, though. In the same vein, would it be helpful if we know that we want to spend a certain amount of money on a particular category of projects, but we don't know what those projects are yet? Is there a reason to do this type of broad accounting for those as well? I mean, if we don't know what we're doing with, specifically with childcare in that line.
I thought you did. I mean, I thought you guys had already come up with these projects, and that's why you approved them last year. Did that involve Ivy Tech and somebody, or?
I would comment that the projects are fluid in that there's a collaboration between multiple entities in the child early education projects. And especially with the new Lilly grant coming up, people are just trying to get the biggest bang for their bucks that they can. Because the need is so great, so just, it's not final yet. And I will try and find out more information before our next meeting.
Councilor Crossley just reminded me that we did that last year, and I thought that we had talked about it like last month, because crazy.
Time
I was
flies.
like, but that was last year.
That was,
I'm like, so what new thing are we doing now? Okay.
Yeah.
All right, are there any other questions? Perhaps more informed questions? No? Okay, then if we could have a roll call vote on each line that remains separately, that would be great.
Okay. This is for account line 36708, childcare, in the amount of $725,000. Counselor Iverson,
Yes.
Counselor Hogg,
Yes.
Counselor McKim,
Yes.
Counselor Wiltz,
Yes.
Counselor Crossley,
Yes.
Counselor Munson,
Yes.
Counselor Deckard.
Yes.
Motion passed unanimous.
The motion should not come from the bench,
This is for account line 36709,
whatever.
rural housing repair, $200,000. Counselor Hawk,
Yes, I just believe the motion should be coming from the council, but if this works for everybody else,
She just wants
I
you
was
to
told
read
to
the
read
line
it,
rather
so-
than.
because it sounds as though the motion's coming from the bench and it has to come from
It
the council.
wasn't clear that I asked her to read each one? All right.
I mean, I'll read it if you want me to, but so,
No, I thought it was.
I mean, the motion is not to come from the
Okay.
bench.
The motion has already been made. This is just a separation of the votes.
And I get that, that's not what I was saying, okay.
So,
Yeah, let's just do it,
I thought I was reading them separated for roll call.
right,
so we're on rural housing repair.
okay. I'm all for that, yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Counselor Hawk,
Yes,
Counselor McKim,
Yes.
Counselor Wiltz,
Yes.
Counselor Crossley,
Yes.
Counselor Munson,
Yes.
Counselor Deckard,
Yes.
Counselor Iverson.
Yes.
Motion passed unanimous.
Thank you. And next one?
This is for account line 36713, Permanent Supportive Housing Initiative, Beacon, $500,000. Counselor Wiltz,
Yes.
Counselor Crossley,
Yes.
Counselor Munson,
Yes.
Counselor Deckard,
Yes.
Counselor Iverson,
Yes.
Counselor Hawk,
no,
Counselor McKim.
Yes.
Motion passed unanimous.
No, not unanimous.
Oh,
6-1.
oh, sorry. Motion passed 6-1. Sorry.
Great, thank you. And the next one?
Okay, one moment.
Sure.
It was in the original motion. There was a question regarding the motion with creating the new account line, but that was in the original motion, so.
But we still have to vote on that, so I
Well,
would just read those separately as well.
well, that was the 36,713 that you just voted on.
Right, but now that next year.
Pardon?
So the.
We normally do them together. We do the creation of the account lines as well as the appropriations at the same time. So we don't normally vote on those separate.
So you're saying basically, which makes sense, that we just implicitly
Yeah.
created
Yep.
the line for Beacon and we implicitly tabled the line for, yeah, okay.
Correct. Yes.
We got it.
Okay. All right, for the next vote, it is for account line 48004, Convention Center Improvements for $1,059,000. Counselor Crossley,
Yes.
Counselor Munson,
Yes.
Counselor Deckard,
Yes.
Counselor Iverson,
Yes.
Counselor Hawk,
Yes.
Counselor McKim,
Yes.
Counselor Wiltz.
Yes.
Motion passed unanimous. This is for account line 48005, solar projects, $1,011,571. Counselor Munson,
Yes.
Counselor Deckard,
Yes.
Counselor Iverson,
Emphatically yes.
Counselor Hawk,
Yes.
Counselor McKim,
Yes.
Counselor Wiltz,
Yes.
Counselor Crossley.
Yes.
Motion passed unanimous. And that should take care of it.
Fantastic. What?
I just wanted to clarify quickly that childcare appropriation, we had an MOU for 300,000 of it, which is why it's broken off from the 1.25 million. So this is the remaining portion.
Okay, thank you. Thanks.
And I just want to say, I do not have signature pages for each one of those, and I will develop one. And if you guys are okay with it, I will use your electronic signatures.
Everyone okay with that?
Yes.
Please,
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
make sure your no votes.
And I've got it done.
She's got a stamp, just for Marty right now.
All right, our next item is also from the auditor and commissioner's offices.
Council, I move to approve the general obligation bond encumbrances for budget year 2023. The GO bond encumbrance detail is set out on the agenda.
Well, there you go.
Second.
Okay, this is another housekeeping item, just encumbering the appropriations from one year to the next. I do have a couple updates. Line for the 2015 GeoBond Capital Project, Fund 4806, account 460. I need to reduce that by $244, so it would be encumbering $78,416. And then under the 2017 GeoBond Capital Projects, Fund 4810, all of the appropriations are going to trail expansion. So the total for trail expansion is $55,817.28. And then finally, under the 2020 GeoBond Capital Projects, Fund 4813, we're removing the administration fees and reducing the vehicle purchase by $11,721.58. So the new appropriation under account line 41104 is $61,160.84. That brings the total for the 2020 GeoBond encumbrance to $458,792.17.
Okay. What question do you have?
Actually, I don't have a question, I'm sorry. Are you just gonna have to do a unanimous consent motion and make those changes?
Yes. So I ask unanimous consent on the changes that Ms. Gregory just read into the record. So everybody okay with that? You say aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Now, there are a couple of things that I wanted to make clear. We do not technically have to encumber everything, but geo bond stuff is different. Is this correct? Could you explain me?
Sure. Okay. So, yes. So when a bond is approved, you're approving a total amount and a set of projects, but you're not approving a specific amount per project. So, so as long as we're continuing with the intended projects within a bond, then we continue to appropriate as deemed necessary for the county's needs.
Yes.
And it just as if I may, the bonding documents themselves have already dictated how these dollars are to be used. And so because of that, there's no need to keep bringing it back for your approval. You've already approved it. They can't be moved anyplace else. They can't be used for anything but these projects, or because we do write the bonding documents and you guys sign the ordinance appropriation that gives us some flexibility to use the funds for projects or items that meet the same criteria of the original project or capital purchase that we were having. Does that make?
So I guess, are we actually voting on an encumbrance here, or has the auditor's office just basically already done the encumbrance and you're just reporting this to us?
So it's been determined that council doesn't need to officially vote to improve, to encumber in general, because we already have like an obligation to pay, which is what it's just, an accounting term essentially. Historically, the council has voted to approve, I believe, but I think just an acknowledgement may be appropriate.
So we're really just acknowledging your report of encumbrances.
Yes,
Okay.
exactly. And you will also be receiving a report for all of the encumbrances. You have them in one place from 22 to 23, as well as a reversion report shortly.
Okay.
And might I say that the reason why I think that's very important is not everyone around this table voted in favor of the bonds. Oh, well, we know who voted no. But I think that we absolutely have to cover what the group has decided. I don't have to go, that's the reason why I'd rather not vote in favor of, having the bond to begin with. So that's problematic.
It makes complete sense.
But I've always felt that once you've obligated, then we have to figure out how we're going to do that. It's just a bit different than other things.
Do you want to amend how you phrased it?
Yeah, I think I just simply withdraw my motion, right?
Bam.
Yeah, and what I was gonna just say to add to that, after withdrawing my motion, is that I think it's a healthy exercise that we've just done, engaged in. I think that has served that purpose to see where these things are, and yeah.
And I wanted to make sure everyone was aware of a communication that I made with the auditor's office that basically laid out the acknowledgement that we don't officially vote on these. And in the future, what we'd like is, once you have it all figured out in the first quarter, I think was what we had said was a reasonable time frame, please provide us a report that has all of it and present it at a meeting. And that way we've got it all together. It's one thing that they can work toward getting everything cleaned up. And we're still, like you said, monitoring, but it's not something where we're officially approving because we have to, it's being done.
Okay. I'd like to add that when that message was going back and forth between the auditor and you and staff and whatever, our staff should be sending that out to all of us. I understand that you're concerned you don't want to send out a message to the entire council because we don't want to be caught in the middle of a mess there.
Right.
But that information should have been shared with the whole council, coming from either the auditor's office or the council staff, so that because I was like trying to study all this and trying to figure out what are we doing, and that would have saved me a lot of time if I had just known that that message was going back and forth in the agreement. So that, I think there's probably a lot of discussion going on at that meeting, some kind of a staff meeting or something, that the entire council really needs to be privy to, you know, have it sent out by council attorney or something of the sort. But I do agree with what you're saying. We just need to be notified. And also having our financial manager look at and adjust that, you know, when we do the financial statement, there's a line there that shows where the encumbrances are going to be. And that's part, and if you participated in that last budget update, that was showing us what we were supposed to do at this point once that end of the year bookkeeping was done. And so I'm hoping that we'll get that information brought, so we'll all be back on where we are now as from where we got that 1782, because it's different now.
So I had asked Ms. Purdy to be here as well because I anticipated there might be questions about the projects related to some of these. So just letting everyone know, they have the opportunity to ask questions of Ms. Purdy as well as Ms. Gregory about any of this or about the process. Are there any questions or comments from council?
I have questions too, so whenever, go ahead.
Thanks. I have one question about a project here and then another question for our legal department. The first question, I guess, is about the 2019 GeoBond line labeled property acquisition.
Yep, it was mine.
Do we, it's been, a long time. I've lost a few brain cells since then. Do we know which property that's intended to acquire?
That was the quarry.
Okay, quarry property.
Yeah.
The quarry?
Oh.
But have we not already paid for that?
Right, so we had some money left over, but I believe the language in the bond allows it to be applied to other property acquisitions, so it's leaving, unless another project in the 2019 GeoBond is going to go over, we would leave that money in there to be used for.
So we don't have a specific piece of property in mind for that line. So then that actually leads to what my second question was, which was about the bond the bond anticipation note, which has the line, the $10 million for property acquisition. Now, obviously, we know that that's the jail. Right. But I guess, and my question for the legal department is, I think I know the answer to this, but beyond the appropriation, the council still has to approve the purchase of any land costing more than $1,000, right? Okay, so we still have oversight. Definitely. And participate in the land purchase even though the appropriations are already in place.
Definitely.
Thank you.
Yes.
Okay.
Does legal agree with that?
Yes.
It's good to hear from legal on that.
Sorry, I had asked her earlier.
Sorry, and I'm sorry.
I was also going to ask about the property acquisition, but I actually thought it might very well be that when the highway is having to purchase right-of-way, this might have been some of the purchase price of some of that right-of-way, even though there's just a little bit of frontage on some private property. I just wondered if that might have been part of what that was. And then I was curious about there's vehicle purchases here, there, and yon on several of these. Is it all one vehicle purchase and you just split it up into wherever you could find the money in the bonds?
Actually, so this is kind of a two-part.
I'm going to read what you're saying.
Oh, okay, sure. This is actually kind of two parts answer. Part of the problem with what we're currently doing is that we are using nomenclature to cover more than one type of item. So we have been using vehicles as an account line, which causes problems because vehicles may be law enforcement vehicles, it may be highway equipment vehicles, it may be non-law enforcement vehicles, it might be parks vehicles. And so we've already talked, I've already been speaking with the auditor and your office about maybe having it in the bonds. It's more important to have a more specific identification of how that money is to be applied. So if it's for non-law enforcement, we need to be able to see that it's non-law enforcement. If it's for highway, we need to see it's highway.
Okay. Because I know you can buy law enforcement vehicles out of CUMCAP. There are differences in, statutory differences.
Yeah, we do buy the law enforcement, and we kicked that up a few years ago. It had been like $250,000 that we were allotting in CUM, but now it's at $500. So, and the cost of the vehicles are
I think it might be helpful if we had, like in each department, where vehicles were going, because if you just go, oh, vehicles, it's like, okay, who got those? And if the public should ask us, are you going to have an answer? I wouldn't. I'd say.
Yes.
Go ahead, yeah.
Okay, sure. So you were asking, I just want to make sure, if we could identify what vehicles are in what departments?
Right, just for the public's knowledge of what vehicles we are replacing, and how often they get replaced, et cetera, just some overview for the public to understand where the
We can certainly do
vehicles
that.
are going.
I can't do it right now.
I beg I'm just saying at some point.
Most definitely, because we do keep track in our inventory of what vehicles are assigned to the various departments, and we're actually looking at some software that will be able to manage them a little better, where we can manage their actual mileage so that we know when they're really coming up to be needing service, as opposed to relying on the person operating that vehicle.
And a little history on how the vehicles used to work is we had a fleet committee, and the council members were assigned to the fleet committee, and then the departments would go to the fleet committee telling us what their needs were, and so that then we knew how much was going into repairs for whatever department and what it was costing for each department. And that way you could track the dollars it actually was costing to operate each department. That was a very transparent way to do it, in my opinion, but maybe that's a bit old-fashioned, but I sort of liked the way that worked.
If I may, in the commissioner's fleet budget, we are responsible for a number of vehicles in their maintenance and their general upkeep. So that's always, you can see that at any time in our financial software, how much has been expended for, say, the parks vehicles, or for sheriff's vehicles. Those are always high. For the highway, and not the highway large equipment, but the administrative staff kind of things. Actually, I think I'm misspeaking, because I don't think we cover them now. Parks, health, and I will say, though, that probation has their own line for their own vehicles. And so you can find that information. It's all very clearly stated in our budgets. And then the only vehicles that we purchase that are not going through a bond are the sheriff's vehicles out of the CUMCAP. So. that helps.
So you're saying that that information is available out of the fleet management software?
It is, yes.
Online where the public can see it.
No, no, it is not. It is it is in our budget though, so
I'm
public can see it in the budget.
Are there other questions about the projects or the numbers?
I had
Go
one more
ahead.
question. I'm sorry. I saw a rather large purchase for furniture, $339,000, almost $340,000. And I was trying to remember where that furniture might be.
I don't think it's been purchased yet. Are you looking at the bond and it's an appropriation?
It's the 2020.
2020.
2020 bond, yeah. That is actually for the move of the surveyor.
For the what?
The move of the surveyor over to the showers building.
When is that planned for?
Oh, we could actually do it now. So,
It's imminent.
yeah.
Because I always hit my head on the, and I'm pretty sure
Yeah,
that's it.
yeah, we've actually been over there with him, with Tron and and Richard, and so we've got some spots that we think would be good. There's a section of what used to be Right Amigos, and it's right across from planning, because there is some coordination that goes on between the departments, so it might be nice to have them so relatively close. So, yeah, and I know that I believe Richard has reached out to the furniture company to come in and start looking at, what our needs are for that particular office.
The health building repair and renovation on the 2021, and I discussed this with you a few months ago, that it looked like we were going to have some more repairs. It looked like some damage even along the
Yeah, I know what you're talking about,
Yeah.
that wall.
Well, that, and also like if you're leaving from the clinic and walking down to the health department, along there was like some wallpaper coming off and whatever.
I do know that this,
It looked like it got wet or from moisture or something.
I don't know what you're referencing, but I do know that this work is a second phase of it, and we had not, the first phase of the health building was primarily for the health department and getting them kind of more organized and giving them some more desk space, if you will. And then the second phase was to work on the area outside. It's not outside the building, but it will include the outside of the building.
Like the lobby?
Yes.
Sort of the lobby.
The true lobby of, not the health department lobby, but the true lobby of that building. One of the things that we wanted to look at was, can we put a door? Because right now, the health clinic, or our county employee clinic can be open longer than the building is, but we can't close off all of the building because there's not a door that we can securely close.
Right.
So one door remains open so people can go to the county clinic. The other one is locked, but we still have a space. So we want to make sure that we can, clearly separate those two areas. And then we're also going to look at there's an ADA issue with the access to the clinic, the county employee clinic, because of the sidewalk and everything. So that's going to be looked at. We've done a temporary fix on it, just because it was bad enough. We wanted to get something done and put in place before we got the whole project going. But I do know that Mr. Kreider's reached out to the architect to start working on that particular project. The other thing to keep in mind with that project is the loading dock is, it's, so we want to see what all we can do with that. There's always a need for space. What can we do with that particular loading dock?
So, well, you talked about trying to enclose it or something?
Yes, let's find out what we can do with it. If we can enclose it, if we can make another area.
That might even keep people from trying to sleep there. I'm just saying. Is that?
That's true.
Okay.
Yeah.
Are there other questions about the bond encumbrances? Okay, I do want to say that we talked earlier and talked about how this type of reporting and description of the projects and maybe some update on the progress of them will accompany bond requests in the fall. And we'll try to establish a pattern of every year kind of getting that sort of update. So working on that, I think that'll be really helpful for us.
I think so too. I mean, I will tell you that when this was first, presented, it helped to clarify. I mean, we caught some problems. We caught some issues that we didn't know were in place. Not that there were big issues other than like there's $48.99 that we have still left in one line, which we can take care of on our furniture, just partially, pay out of that. But I think it was a really good, it was a good process that we went through to kind of relook at these. And I think that it is appropriate for us to be able to bring to you when we're asking for another bond, where these bonds are at, and why we're maybe where we're at that point in time. And I will say, when you look at these bonds, remember, most of these bonds, we did not get the funds until December of the year. So 2022, we didn't get those funds until the end of 2022. So we're now just starting to work on those. And then I would also say that between 19 and now, we kind of had a pandemic, and the availability of vehicles has been horrible. The ability to get construction in place is very, very difficult, and the cost of goods has gone up considerably. But it's been really good because we found the nomenclature issue was an issue, and so good things came out of it.
Yeah. Well, thank you very much. And if there are no more questions and there is no vote, then we'll wrap that discussion. And where are we? We are now at item 8.
Council, I move to approve the request to amend Resolution 2021-18, clarity procedures for filling vacancies.
Second.
Ms. Turner King?
So I was reviewing Resolution 2021-18 in regards to the procedures for filling vacancies that departments, heads, or elected officials follow when there's a vacancy within their department. And upon reviewing that, I wanted to recommend to council that we add language basically as a last point in that resolution, and Ms. Schell is sharing the document right now. So what I'm recommending is the inclusion that all vacancies filled pursuant to this policy should be filled in compliance with the personnel policy, specifically the section entitled Recruitment, Selection, and Hiring.
Are there any questions on this item?
Just in general, what is the concern that this is attempting to address? You don't necessarily have to be really specific if you don't want to, but.
I think the concern is we want to ensure that after there's a request for vacancies, those vacancies are being advertised so that we're attracting a variety of qualified candidates.
Great. So this basically is a requirement or it puts some teeth in the requirement that the position be advertised.
Yes.
Great. I'm all for it. Thank you.
There was an addition on clause 2. Oh, and you're getting to that? I'm rushing it. I will.
That's okay. The other issue is hadn't been updated since 2021, and since then we had changed the title for the human resources, and it's to the personnel administrator. And the currently departments issue an email to the council administrator, and then I send out the email to the entire council and include the personnel administrator. So that is our current process. So I just made this wording match our current process.
Great. Questions? More questions? No questions, comments? Okay. Any public comment? And seeing none, do we do a roll call vote?
Yes, it's a resolution.
Okay, please.
Counselor Iverson,
Yes.
Counselor McKim,
Yes.
Counselor Hawk,
Yes.
Counselor Munson,
Yes.
Counselor Deckard, Counselor Wiltz,
Yes.
Counselor Crossley.
Yes.
Motion passed unanimous.
Thank you. And we are on to 8B. Oh, that's me. You don't have to say anything. Next up, we have an update from Ms. Shell regarding a prior approved health department additional appropriation. Please update us.
Okay, it was discovered after the last meeting that a location number had been used wrong. It should have been for the grant year ending year, and we had put it on the agenda as like for this year, but the grant didn't end until 2024. And this just, those location numbers help departments track grants so that they know what's coming in, you know, what's being spent, you know, it's just an easier tracking system for them. So the auditor's office discovered this, and it was updated so to the correct location number of 9624. So there's no action needed. We just wanted to bring it to your attention.
Thank you. Are there questions for Ms. Shell? All right. Appreciate that. We are now at item number 9, which is council comments and liaison updates, if you would like. Go ahead and start with
Thank you very much. I just wanted to give a brief report on the Convention Visitors Commission meeting that we had last week. Just a couple of points that I think would be of interest to the fiscal body. Do you mind if I share my screen?
I don't either.
I wouldn't even cry.
Let's see. Okay, and so what I'm showing is from the packet, from the CVC packet, and it's also in the Dropbox. And that is the summary that is produced each month for the innkeeper's tax collections. And what you will see, a couple of things. First of all, last year, 2022, appears to have been by a substantial amount an all-time high in innkeeper's tax collections. So there is really travel is back in a big way. And even in 2023, we have 2 months of collections so far, and we are 55% above the same time last year. Now, we don't expect to be 50 because January and February were still kind of COVID cautious months. A lot of events canceled. That difference is probably artificially high. So we're not going to expect a 55% increase over last year, but I think the numbers are really interesting and do show just the degree to which travel and staying in local establishments is really robust. About 20% of these receipts are from Airbnbs or VRBO, from those sorts of platforms. And it's interesting because these numbers show the aggregate, the entire innkeeper's tax collection. The state has a website that shows innkeeper's tax collection, but only from those innkeeper's taxes that are remitted to the state. And that's basically those platforms, Airbnb and VRBO. So what you can do is you can actually go to the state website, look up innkeeper's tax collection from Monroe County, and that's essentially the Airbnb collections. And then this includes everything. So you just subtract the Airbnb and you get all the conventional hotel amount. So that's just kind of a way that you can tease out that that distinction.
Yeah, went in. It was about,
Yeah, well,
It was
it's probably
about-
not more than a year or so that they have numbers that they have up on the state, but I don't remember
Yeah.
exactly. So that's
Made a
interesting.
big
And so what that has meant is that the operating balance for the general fund in the CBC has gone up from about 1.5 million to 2.5 million dollars. Really substantial. So of course, that leads, and I think we will see discussions about how that money should be used in the near future. One thought is always, well, just pay down the debt. The debt right now is, let's see, what is it right now? We have, it'll be approximately $2 million after the next, by the payoff, which is April 1st of 2026. We will pay another $2 million, but we are now at the point where we're paying basically only principal, not interest. So there's not a lot of advantage in paying that off early. And so I don't think there's a lot of appetite for wanting to pay that off early. But what it does mean is that there's going to be a little extra money to be used for projects that enhance tourism and visitation in Monroe County. And so I would expect there to be discussions in future CBC meetings about that. So those are just some things I thought everybody might want to know.
Such as an expanded convention center.
Or improved soccer fields.
oh, well, for the county, yeah.
We'd like that.
All kinds of
Things that bring
opportunities.
in visitors,
Yeah.
maybe some stuff that's outside the county.
Yep. Who else has a comment? Peter Iverson, please.
Yeah, I have another update. I wanted to provide an update on the progress that the Community Justice Response Committee is making. Most recently, that body, the CJRC, met on Monday, March the 20th, 2023. And at that meeting, the committee, along with the public, learned about the commissioner's trip to Arizona. The commissioner shared features from the facilities that they visited that were noteworthy. Additionally, on March 20th, a document was provided to the CJRC. Numerous council members worked on this document, and I wanted to share my thoughts on that document and invite other council members to do the same. The document in particular contained 3 recommendations. 1, that the new jail have no more than 400 beds. This is based on 3 data points. The Ray study recommended 450 beds on page 17. The Prosecutor Public Defender Bar Association survey was in the 400 to 450 range on page 79. And in the judicial survey, the mean response was 393 beds on pages 4 and 5. The second recommendation was that the location for the new jail be as close to existing services as possible. This is based on 3 data points. The Health Department and agency survey specifically addressed this question on pages 9 and 10. The Prosecutor, Public Defender, and Bar Association survey addresses this question on pages 94 to 103, and the judicial survey published relevant comments on pages 35 to 41. The third recommendation is that the Justice Campus size be determined by several factors in the future. Additional data may be necessary before a recommendation can be made on a Justice Campus, and specifically, some data that may be helpful to see will be coming from DLZ, with whom the commissioners just entered into contract with. Of note, the DLZ process for their building is on page 11 of their RFQ submittal found on the CJRC website. All of the studies that I just cited are also found on the CJRC website. Do other council members have any thoughts they'd like to share about what I just said?
Go ahead.
I would just like to comment that I thank you very much for making this report to your colleagues here on the council who are not present in person at CJRC meetings, even though we get to hear them online and we hear about them. That's That's probably the most important thing. We hear about them from our constituents. And I think it's very important to share this statement with the public.
Councillor Hawk?
Yes, while I appreciate the fact that we have 3 council members there and you've discussed this and the document that you came up with, this was not a document that came from the county council, but the representatives of that was there at the meetings. I would not want to sign off on something saying that we were going to keep the number of beds up under 400. We're not the experts. And by the time we ever get around to actually doing this, how do we know how many beds we might need? And there's a lot of support, it seems to me, to be able to have enough space there to have treatment for those who are incarcerated, because you cannot expect someone who has committed a crime to suddenly just go over to a mental health facility. We see what happened, that we've got the information from our probation department just today that they needed law enforcement there to try to calm someone down. And so we have to recognize that there's many folks that are going to be safer. It's safer for them and safer for the public for them to be in a locked, secure facility with treatment right there available to them. So I would not want to hold it down to under 400, but to leave ourselves the option to making sure that we are preparing for the future. We also do not want to end up like the hospital did. We all know what happened. They built that hospital, and before they were through, I mean, the day they opened, people were complaining they don't have enough beds. But there was a conversation, I recall, from county legal at one point to have for the footprint of the building to be larger, that perhaps the entire outside of the building to be larger, so that the space inside could be moved around and used in such a way that made more sense, so that there would be room there to make sure that we had the beds necessary for treatment and whatever we needed to do. So, and yes, I don't go to those meetings in person, but believe me, I am with you in person. Mm-hmm. So I think we can have different viewpoints about where we're going with this. And we all have ways of knowing what we think is going to be best for the community. So thank you.
Thank you. Great. Councilor?
And I guess I would just say that, I've kind of been back and forth on the issue of where it should be located, mainly based on the advantages that you get with a large lot. But I really think that the evidence comes down on the side that it does have to be very close to existing services. I think the idea of transporting people out to a rural area is just going to be really, really challenging for so many different reasons. And so I would like us really to continue to do whatever we can and be as creative as we can about finding locations inside the city and close to existing services. Hopewell, the old hospital site, just keeps coming up as, I know the city's not interested, but it sure does make sense with respect to proximity for services. I still personally, and I know the commissioners are not in favor of this, I still think that there are, kind of as a last resort, Thompson is still ought to be a possibility, but something, the proximity to existing services that we get either at the hospital or even something like some of the sites near the Trades District, I think are really have a lot of advantages. So I'm glad that you put that together as well.
Other comments? Councilor Munson.
I'd like to give you all an update on the work of the Plan Commission,
Hold on,
which
Councilor
was-
Munson,
Yes.
may I finish my statement just real quick?
Oh, I'm very
On
sorry.
I didn't
Because
realize,
had
I
another
apologize.
Thing I wanted to add to that.
Go ahead.
I just got
That's
carried away with everybody commenting on your comments.
Well, there's an important part that I need to add at the end.
Please go
there.
ahead.
Did you want,
Right, I wanted to, whenever,
is that okay?
Whatever you all
because it's the
work
same,
out.
same
Okay,
subject
yeah, all right,
conversation.
I'll finish up once we hear your piece here.
Okay, well, back to the subject of the jail, et cetera. I am very concerned that we would start spending money moving forward with the design. I believe that the company that they've decided to go with for design, I think they're probably right now, their main goal, and I'm just guessing, is helping the county find the right site. Because you really can't design a building until you know what the ground is. I mean, if you've ever built a building, you have to know how the ground lies. And then I would certainly hope that there would be a lot of discussion about what the design would be, and you cannot design a building. If you told me you wanted me to design a house for you, but you don't know how many bedrooms you want, well, I need to know that. So I think that decision needs to come from a whole lot of different people. And hopefully it will be that we're listening to the advice of people who have built other facilities, because you can't go to Phoenix and think we have the same financial plans. We don't have the same options for financing something that some of the other states do. And one of the comments by one of the commissioners was they were talking about this one facility they went to look at, and there was like, they didn't have them separated in separate jails. It was like, so, but it sounded to me like it was kind of folks that we don't arrest to begin with. I mean, misdemeanors, how many misdemeanors stay in our facility? So see, and this is the same kind of problem we had before when we were going to build that jail for the juveniles. And the people who were presenting this they weren't even using the right numbers. So there's a lot to be worked out. Sorry.
That's okay. That's okay. Those are interesting and I think good points to make. Well, now that we've had this discussion on this memo, I move to officially adopt the memo that reflects the before-mentioned points as a reflection of the council's recommendations for the new jail.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Are there questions or comments on this?
So the motion on the floor is to, again, a memo that reflects the before-mentioned points simply as a reflection of the council's recommendations. None of these recommendations are binding, and I will say that this is an important point to consider as we consider our state's open door laws.
So now it's time for comments for the motion. Right?
Sure, yes.
Okay. I think this is a bit too early for this council to make that kind of decision that this is the reflection of the entire council. I know that there are those who believe that we ought to have some city representatives there. I might just say, I believe there ought to be a Republican there because it's all Democrats, and that's fine, because that's what that's who this county elected. But there needs to be more than just one direction. We need to have opinions coming from everywhere before we can move forward together. Because believe me, the people paying for a jail, it's going to be the most expensive project we've ever done. We better make sure that it's what the people want, not just when you're sitting there talking to friends who think like you or want to believe like you, but the entire community, and we don't always think alike. So, that's my thoughts.
I appreciate that. Did you have comments or thoughts on this?
I was going to add, if it helps counselors to think about positions or details on this, this could always be held to the next meeting. I know that's always an option, greater deliberation. The only other comment I was going to make is the biggest thing I hear out there in the communities I'm out and about in a more normal circuit now, post-COVID and all that, is that people want to see movement, and they want to see good movement, and that people are treated humanely, and beyond humanely, that good things come from that. And so I know there's been more public engagement. It seems like there's a sense of change in that. I'm seeing a lot of city people talking, a lot of county people, both formally and informally. We all know that a lot of that happens in many different ways, whether someone's appointed or not. But movement towards the good is, that's kind of where my heart and intention is. I recognize that one thing that is missing from politics these days is the discussion or art of compromise in any sense of fashion. It's missing at every level. It's like the word has been deleted, no one can seem to find it. And I'm always for anything that's going to make good progress and get done. And I think that this represents a semblance of some of that. And so if it would help us towards that effort to kind of hold this for future meeting, I'm for that too. Because that's good government. That is very good government.
Interesting. I appreciate those comments. Anybody else have thoughts on the?
I was just gonna say, I feel like I'm quiet today. Because I also feel like during the CJRC meetings, I feel like I talk a lot, and sometimes maybe some people think I talk too much. But I'm talking, just as Councilor Huck was saying, because I'm not just doing this for myself, Jennifer Crossley. I'm doing this on behalf of the constituents that continue to reach out with me, whether I'm grabbing coffee with them and explaining, the stance. And folks have been paying attention to these meetings. I remember when we first started last year, where we would see one or two people on Zoom, and now we had, I think the last meeting I saw, we were at like 37, almost 40 people in attendance on Zoom. So that just leads us to believe that folks are paying attention and people want to see, as Councilor Decker said, movement. But in addition to the movement, we also have to have civility, and we also have to have a sense of decorum of how we are listening to each other and how we are moving forward with that. I was pleased to hear the commissioners' visits, but I was traveling last week for work, and it was hard to pay attention to it via Zoom because I'm listening to an oral presentation, and personally, I was expecting for that big of a trip that we would have saw some type of formal report. And I know I mentioned that last week, and I still hold to us needing to have that because that was a big trip. And I definitely think, just hearing somebody say, oh, this was a big kitchen because they tried to, do it big for the community, that's great and all. But I'm thinking of constituents reaching out, and I had several people say, well, what do you take of that? And I still have questions of that. So I would really ask for, things like that to be of a report. Having said all that, I know that's a discussion that we're having on the motion. I appreciate, Councilor Iverson's work on that and the other councilors as well. I just really, I will say this because I've had this conversation before. It does give me a little pause I know that the report said, more than, and I know that our thing is saying, no more than 400. It gives me pause. And again, I'm not just doing this for me. I'm hearing other constituents saying, well, what about treatment? And I know we can't just snap our fingers and build a building off of 7th Street to have treatment facilities. But I do think that hopefully the state of Indiana with SB1 and some other bills that are going through will help us with that. But I really want to see, in addition to us talking about facilities, how we can, in the long run, while still listening to experts, try to make sure that we are really focusing on the mental health and substance use aspect and component of it, because we already know when we average about 160 to 170 a day, a day in terms of our what we are holding, and we hear 80% of that is those that have substance use and mental health problems or issues. That in itself is telling us that we can do more, we can do better. How can we take this time while I'm still moving? Because I'm not saying that we just need to sit here and keep arguing for, years to come on this. How can we continue to move forward? So I think that this is something that is trying to hold our feet to the fire and try to move forward. And also at the end of the day, our county council, we're the fiscal body of that stuff. So we are really trying to hold true to, what it is that we see what the community wants and what's coming of that. So yeah, that's all I have to say.
All right. So I have reviewed this document and commented on it. And I can say that personally, I'm very comfortable with Peter's work on including the data that has been presented in CJRC and translating that into recommendations. I, for one, think 400 is larger than we need unless we are talking about separate mental health facilities. And so I'm, it says no more than, I'm comfortable with that. Close to existing services, yes, absolutely. I mean, we talk about our values, and I just have a hard time seeing how not trying to get this as close as possible to the services that can help people isn't aligning with our values. And then the choice to back off of the Justice Campus size makes sense to me right now. We have a lot of very ambiguous data that we still need to work through on that. So I want to bring Councilor Deckard's point back to the fore. I am for endorsing this in the manner that you suggested, Councilor Iverson, especially because I think setting something out there is a step forward. So I'm happy to support your motion. And if others would like to table it so that they can feel better about supporting it or look into it and offer maybe even feedback, I'm okay with that as well. But I'm gonna turn it back over to you to kind of determine what you want to do with that.
I would recommend that we vote on this tonight for the reason that between our next meeting, there will be additional CJRC meetings. And this has already been out there. This has been printed and distributed to the CJRC. This has been emailed out to folks. So the cat is essentially out of the bag. And I think kicking this down the road 2 weeks will not really accomplish a whole lot. And I would ask that we take care of this evening.
All right. Are there any other questions or comments?
There's a CJRC meeting this upcoming Monday, April 3rd, too. So just to bring that to the attention.
That's right.
All right. Then I will call for a roll call vote on this motion. Michelle, could you help us with that?
Counselor McKim.
Of course you'd ask me first.
Sorry.
Yes.
Counselor Crossley.
Yes.
Counselor Wiltz.
Yes.
Counselor Hawk.
No.
Counselor Iverson.
Yes.
Counselor Deckard.
Yes.
Counselor Munson.
Yes.
Motion passed 6-1 majority.
Thank you. And thank you for all your work on this, Counselor Iverson. Appreciate it.
Birds of a feather, and this hawk just stays over here together.
Other council comments? That's what we were doing. Any council comment? Counselor Deckard.
I do have, I have 3, so I'll be expeditious. I swear I won't go too long, but there's some things I do need to say. It's not that ominous. Number 1, the at-large counselors will be hosting a listening session this Saturday. So for folks in the public, a listening session means you are invited, just as you're always invited to any council meeting. We have seats here in Nat U Hill. Of course, you can watch us on Cats or come in on Zoom. But this Saturday from 12 to 1 at the downtown library, room 2A, you can join us. Or you can join us via Zoom from home or wherever you might be this Saturday, April 1st. And to let you know how to figure out how that Zoom link can get to you, if you visit the Monroe County Council webpage, here's how I do it, folks at home. I Google Monroe County Council and I get right there. Or if you're wiser than me, and I suspect many of you are, you can go to co.monroe.in.us/council. And then what you do, just scroll down, you'll see all of our smiling faces together. And right below the district members, you're gonna see at-large council members, and you'll see your at-large members host monthly listening meetings. Click here. Click on that, you'll get to the flyer and a link that'll show you where that Zoom link is so you can come in and listen. Now, to talk to you more about that, I wanna explain that your at-large counselors have set it up to where we have a special guest. Sheriff Ruben Marte will be joining us and speaking, and he'll be joined by his chief deputy, Phil Parker. Those who've watched at home, you've seen the chief deputy and the sheriff in our meetings before, as well as jail commander Kyle Gibbons. And so we invite the public to come in, to listen, to add your comments. As the many counselors often remark, we learn more outside the courthouse than sometimes within it. And this is one of those kind of Saturday things the at-large counselors have been doing and enjoying, and we appreciate that. The second thing I want to say kind of goes to the spirit of some things that are underlying everything, and that is we are in the midst of a city election. And it's no mystery to people out there that the city and the county work together and should work together. And there's many things we do well, there's many things we need to work on. The Bloomington Chamber of Commerce hosted a counselors forum for city council candidates, and it was good to be there with other counselors and to join that chamber event and hear from these people that will lead what is the county seat, our largest municipality, and to interact with them and see how we will work with them. And it gives me hope and some optimism. So thanks to the chamber and all the different forums that do it, as well as all the entities that cover those things, such as the B Square Beacon and the Herald Times, the Bloomingtonian. We appreciate them in addition to our radio friends that tune in. The last thing I want to say is a note of horror that I want to just talk about. And I'm going to say this because I feel like people like me don't say this enough, and that I don't want to go to the end of my time and have that on my conscience. I am horrified by what occurred in Nashville within the last 36 hours. It has been on me. I was in a church meeting when I learned the full depth of it, and I watched people in the church be horrified by it. And I listened to news accounts, which if you have not done it and you can do it, I recommend you do it. But the thing I'll say is it is horrifying. This is one of many events involving guns that just keep happening and keep happening and keep happening. And people like me that sit and smile and don't comment, we're just as guilty. And so here's what I'm gonna say. During the pandemic, I offered some words about getting your vaccine as a comment to my neighbors who I love in this community. I'm gonna offer 3 things. Take stock of the people that you know and that are in your family or in your associations. Do people need help? Do you need help getting those people help? Does someone need to know anything about those people that can help us do our job? The council, when we meet, we have a deputy that is with us, a remarkable deputy. We are fortunate to have that. We have remarkable law enforcement. They do a tremendous job along with our EMTs, our fire personnel, great people. They are not psychic. They need our help. And then second thing I'd say is if you are a member of our community and you've got weapons and guns in your home or that you know about, are they secure? And when I say, are they secure, what I really mean is if your life depended on it, or your neighbors, or your children, or somebody's child, or anyone that you care about that is human, are those weapons secure? I watched that coverage and those small people out there, and it shouldn't take small people for us to think of these things. My gosh, for people, we are on this planet Earth and we are in it together. Common sense. Look out for each other. Every elected official at every level should be paying attention to this like people's lives depend on it, because guess what? They do. And we got a lot of work to do. So I apologize for the emotion here, but as a parent, as a representative of the community, I can't just sit and be quiet on this. I was horrified by this. I continue to be horrified. And I apologize that I'm later to the party to discuss it than I should be. Folks, we gotta do better. So Madam President, I'm sorry for talking so much, but thank you.
Well said.
Yeah, don't apologize. It's true words and important words. Does anyone want to follow that?
Just really quick.
Yep.
I don't want to I don't want to get emotional thinking about that. But I also just want to say, since we're talking about that, trans rights are human rights. And what happened in our state house, I think is absolutely deplorable. And I'm not gonna go on my soapbox, but I just want to say to my constituents who this deeply affect, as just a human citizen, as a mom, as a mom to children who have trans friends, as I am friends with parents who have trans children, shame on us. And I stand in solidarity with our trans community, and that's it.
Yes, Councilor Munson.
So I want to change the tone a little bit and get back to just the business of county governance. I don't have an emotional presentation to make. I have a very businesslike one, though, and it's for the public to know what is going on with our planning department and planning commission. And it's something that you all may be interested in knowing about. Last week, we had a focus group meetings regarding the county development ordinance that is in the works. And there were 3 topics: economic development, environmental review, and construction review. And people could attend one. But there are PowerPoints that go with each of those topics. And these are available for the public to look at and to really see how zoning maps and use categories are fitting together. The planning department has been very open about how they've conducted the development ordinance, and they do ask for participation. So I just want to encourage people to go to the planning department website. You can find links to these PowerPoints. If you don't find them easily, just contact me and I'll help you out. And I guess I want to thank Councilor McKim for switching places with me and making sure that every Tuesday night that I'm going to have something to do, because I haven't had that before. Planning is something that I wanted to be involved in for a longer time because I served on one of the best committees in this county, and that is the Plan Review Committee, which has citizen members who look at the initial stages of proposed changes in buildings and plans. So I'm glad I can do this now. I stand ready to answer any questions from folks.
I don't have a question, but that website is monroecdo.com.
Yeah.
It's a pretty easy one.
It is.
So
Thanks for
just wanted to
having
throw
that.
out. Anything else?
I'll try to make it quick.
All right.
Okay, as a member of the Indiana County Council Legislative Group, I just wanted to say that the part of the group went to speak to the Ways and Means on Wednesday of last week, and they made a very good impression. We could all be very proud of the folks that went there to testify. And one of the things they testified about was the distribution of the public safety tax, the changes that had been proposed. I think that they made some good points there, because while they do believe that townships need to have dollars for what they're asking for, there needs to be some other method to fund it, because many of the counties have already dedicated their public safety local income tax for covering other situations. And so, as you know, we cover a lot in public safety with those dollars. So that was, I felt like a lot of people went to speak. I know that our sheriff has been there, and the chief deputy, Mr. Parker, they were there again today, having to do with the bill that was heard today. Chris May did take away all of the amendments that had been put in, was that House Bill 317?
Senate Bill 317.
317, yeah, Senate 317, so that that was something the sheriffs throughout the state were very concerned about. But just to know that tomorrow, Ways and Means, they always meet on Wednesdays. And so there's going to be several food and beverage tax, not just one. I think there's 3 on there that they're going to be talking about. So for those people who are interested in that, you might want to take a listen. And then there's also one on there having to do with the Elected Officials Training Fund. That's Senate Bill 65. Our very own Sue Ann Mitchell went to speak on that and asked that the county councils be included in being allowed to use that Elected Officials Training Fund. Remember, the recorder's office collects it depending on what is being recorded in that, but there's so many dollars sitting there in that election officials training fund, and the county councils cannot use that for our training. And if there's anyone that needs training, folks, it's us, because we've got a heavy load to carry. Well, I'm not being facetious about that. We have a huge responsibility, and to be able to get additional training and to be able to access these funds. So I think that's also helpful. But there's a lot going on at the state. Just hang on your hats, folks, because it's moving fast. So
if only they would stick to these important fiscal issues and not try to legislate like Councilor Crossley said against trans folks. I mean, I know that's not your fault.
That's hey, listen,
but
I am reporting on what we are interested in, and that has to do with the fiscal responsibility of this county.
Agreed.
So don't beat me up over that.
No one's going to argue that. Thank you. I just want to add my one last thing, which is the most businessy of all of y'all's announcements. All y'all's. We had a closeout on our audit this past week, and it was glowing. We had external auditors crawling the books for a while, and they had nothing but absolutely glowing things to say about Bree and Kathy and the whole team, and it makes it such a pleasure. So congratulations. You can't even, I wouldn't even know how to do what we do here if, you weren't holding down all of the foundation of it. So really appreciate that, and congratulations. All right.
I think that I just wanted to applaud you and the people on the council who took time to listen in on what is happening and what actually the hard work that the auditor's office and Bree puts into making all this work. If we didn't listen in on that, I'm not sure we all would all understand what all the responsibilities are. And so I applaud the council members for spending time to listen on that too, because I think we all learned something.
It was well worth it, yeah.
Yeah, it's a valuable experience. With that, we are adjourned. Thank you.